Welcome back to part two, and we'll go back to Belfield, Tom. Ferns and Rathnure, it was a tough game.
Yeah, it was a tough game, Kate, and for long periods it looked very, very like Ferns were not going to win the game. Rathnure, with about 7 or 8 minutes to go, looked like they were going to drive on. But I think Ferns this year have shown a great maturity in some of the games that I've seen, where they don't panic. And Tommy Dwyer, you know, I keep going on about their midfield, but Tommy Dwyer and Benny Jordan, but Tommy Dwyer in particular, gave a masterclass midfield performance. He scored 3 points from play and I think 11 points in total. And really, it was a one-man job bringing Ferns into the game at a time that Rathnure looked like they were going to take over. But I was impressed with Ferns, Mike. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, I thought they struggled at times, Tom, under the high ball in defence, and you know they will have to look at that for the semi-final. You know, Robbie Codd did score 1-3 on the edge of the square. He could have got another goal. You know, he is one of the best forwards in the county to catch a ball. And you know, Pádraig Ryan won't be happy that he conceded 1-3, and I'm sure you know he will up his game for the next day. But I am impressed with Ferns. I was impressed with them last year. I do think that they have a very strong forward line. You know, they all contribute to the scoreboard. They do give a good ball into the forwards, and overall, you know, I am very impressed with them. Like I thought Ian Byrne was outstanding for them last year. You know, he was very good. He scored 3 points in play again the last day. Bitsy O'Connor obviously chipped in with 1-2. So, you know, they have scoring forwards. They have the ability to destroy a team. Now, they haven't really performed yet this year, which is why I still think the best of Ferns is still to come.
Yeah, looking at the game itself, if you look at the Rathnure forwards, I think to a man almost, you know, maybe not them all, but they all got the better of their opponents, the Ferns backs. You know, I see Anthony O'Connell, he got 4 points. As you say earlier, Robbie Codd was doing very well. And the ball coming down, Jack Guiney, you know, he caught an awful lot of ball in the second half, and he caught it at his ease. And I think that's the worry for Ferns. I mean, there's no doubt up front their forwards are superb, and you know, even Paul Morris, I mean, he rarely has a poor game, and again was superb when Ferns really needed him the last day. But certainly someday, Mike, I think they could be caught. I would see them as, you know, obviously favourites going forward, but they certainly could be caught if they don't close up their defence a little bit more than they have been doing.
It kind of reminds me of you know, Tipperary against Kilkenny. Like Tipperary did all the hurling against Kilkenny in the first day of the All-Ireland, and Kilkenny just, you know, snuffed them out the last day. And Ferns are like that. They, you know, they haven't really got someone in the forwards. They like to break the ball down from the puck out, is what I noticed about them. But there's very few of them able to win primary possession and lay it off. So unless they're getting a good supply from their midfield, which they did the last day, but if that dries up and if the ball from their half-backs dry up, well then there's not too many of them that will win that primary possession and lay the ball off to a man in a better position. But saying that, they will be very hard to stop. If it's a fine day, if the grass is cut short in Wexford Park, you would have to fancy Ferns. And as I say, I do believe there is a big performance in Ferns. I thought last year in the county final, was it not for their start, they probably would have won it. And it was a very wet, dogged day, you know, as well. So, you know, they have a lot of positives.
Yeah, what do you think of Rathnure? You know, I mean, as I said earlier about Buffers Alley, their age profile is moving up a bit. They've some fantastic hurlers. As you know, Anthony O'Connell, I would remember him as a corner back, you know, and played for Wexford there. But he came up against Ferns and he got 4 points, as I say, from play. You know, Jack Guiney had a great game. What's the future going to hold for Rathnure, Mike, I wonder?
Yeah, like, they are coming through underage again, but you know, Mick O'Leary, who's, you know, 39, Brendan, I'm not sure what age he is, but you know, they are old, and they really shouldn't be relying on the likes of them to be, you know, to be in the centre of their defence. So it is worrying a little bit. Now, I didn't expect Rathnure to get as close as they were, and I certainly didn't think to be, you know, in a commanding position halfway through the second half. I genuinely thought Ferns would have beaten them handier, but the future, you know, Rathnure will be back. They're like Buffers Alley, they're like Owler, they will be back. They are a hurling club. And the future, I'm sure, will be bright for Rathnure. And they're not going to win a county championship for the next couple of years, but they will in the future as well.
They'll never go away, there's no doubt about that. I was actually standing behind the goal, I kind of watched the game, and it's very interesting to watch Ferns play, because not only are they great score takers, and they likes of, you know, Morris, Benny, like Benny is just brilliant every day, I mean, but when you see the movement of their players, James Tonks is a big player for them, and he's proved that against Rathnure as well. well. But when he gets the ball, you see the movement of the Ferns players. Palmer, they're all moving into position. And as you said, they play a little bit like Tony Kelly. You know, he plays for Clare. He very rarely gets caught under the ball, but they're actually winning possession a lot. And they're probably dependent on John Breen to win their primary possession up there. But they're not an easy team to cope with, and particularly in the big environs of Wexford Park, they certainly will be very, very hard to beat. But I tell you, this Rathnure team, you know, you really have to say they have a great lot of heart about them. And I actually thought, with maybe 7 or 8 minutes ago, maybe Rathnure hadn't the old belief of Rathnure that they were going ahead to win this game.
Yeah. Like, the one thing I took from it, Tom, was when Ferns needed the scores, they got the scores. And you mentioned their maturity earlier on. Like, they did get the last 4 or 5 points of the game to pull away, but it's the ease at which they got their scores throughout the game is what impressed me most. You know, other teams have to work hard for their scores, whereas Ferns just seem to glide into positions and stroke the ball over the bar. And to me, that'll stand for them. You know, when it comes to the semi-finals, the way their forwards move, the ease at which they get their scores is very, very impressive. And to me, they are the pick of 4 teams left. You know, they do get their scores the easiest. They do have class forwards, and they are the pick of the 4 teams.
Yeah, well, I just think they've been very, very fortunate with John Byrne as a manager, Rory, because I was watching them on the sideline that day, and to be honest with you, even when things weren't going well, John was literally so cool on the side. He doesn't do panic. You know, even if you know him, he doesn't do panic. And I think he's brought a lot of that to Ferns. And I think, you know, they're moving pretty well, but they haven't hit the heights possibly of even the county final last year. It'll be interesting to see if they will, you know, come the end of the year, really.
Well, Rory, let's look at Ferns' opponents. The Shells and Raps game was a tight affair.
Yeah, right up until the very end, it was very hard to call who was going to win, Kate. You know, it ebbed and flowed for the whole second half. There was a point or two between it, you know, for most of the second half. I think the Raps will be very frustrated that they're not in a county semi-final. You know, they wasted an awful lot of chances in the second half. They will see it as an opportunity lost to get back into the semi-final. You know, basically their problem at the end, you know, they basically had no one really to score when they needed to score, whereas the Shells had John Kelly to come up to the plate and take a couple of very, you know, crucial points at the end of the match. You know, Tom, I was highly impressed with the amount of scores he got from play, from sidelines, from place balls. You know, he was basically the difference between the 2 teams.
Yeah, I mean, he's a super talent, and you know, the one worry again, of course, when you've the one man being that prominent, you know, you worry that if he does have an off day, maybe that it can be to the detriment of the team. But I thought that the referees as well, Rory, in the first half, they probably should have been a bit further ahead. And I think if you are kind of on your game in your time of supremacy, you really need to put it on the board. Now, they went in 4 points up, and it was a fantastic goal, very quick thinking from the Raps forwards, and a great finish by Kevin Foley, which put them in that position. I actually was very impressed with Mossy Mann all through. I mean, he was superb. But I think the Raps really, the losing of the game from their point of view was in the first half. Whereas when the Shells really got going in the second half, you know, they have some very, very strong players, and they have a very strong midfield. I think that, you know, well, Brian Malone switched from full to centre forward, and, you know, Stephen Banville did quite well when he came out. So they have a lot of very, very good players, and I think the Shells did close off the game, but the Raps will be looking at this. You know, it has been a good year for Brian Keowney's men. They will be looking at this as an opportunity missed. Yeah,
just to look at the Raps, like, Declan Rook got a couple of long range points in the first half. Mossy was the really outstanding forward, or standing out player on the field. You know, they're 2 men who are coming to the end of their career. Now, the Raps did introduce a lot of young chaps during the second half. A lot of players of the same style. You know, they kept, you know, they were running at them, but there was no one really taking the points. And I know Kevin Foley got a great goal in the first half, and it was a super goal. But to me, Kevin, you know, didn't score as much as really as the Raps would have liked him to score. Now, he's still very young. You know, he's only just gone probably 19 years of age, and maybe there's too much pressure on his shoulders at this stage. But they will definitely see it as an opportunity lost, and they do need to make the breakthrough with all these young players, and I'm sure they will make the breakthrough very, very soon as well. But looking at the Shells, as you said, they have a very strong midfield. They are physically, I mean, Stephen Banville is a giant of a man. He scored a couple of great points. Brian Malone is obviously their centre forward to break up the play, and it will help, you know, his forwards around him. Their midfield is very strong, and, you know, Clive Lawler, until he got injured, had done very well the last day as well. So providing Clive can stay injury free, he will make a big contribution at centre back as well.
Yeah, I've been watching Clive, Rory, since he was 16 years of age. He's a superb player, and, you know, the downturn in the Shells' performance last year coincided, you remember, against Oulart with Clive going off, so it is vital that he stays on the field. But certainly the Shells have had serious underage success over the last number of years, and you know, you couldn't, again, of all the 4 teams that are left, you certainly wouldn't bet too much money against the Shells achieving what they want to achieve as well. But it was a tight game, high scoring, and it was an enjoyable game. But I thought the Shells just about deserved to come through, even though the Raps will see this as maybe one of their greatest chances of making a county final.
Would it be right to say, or would it be true to say, or would it be unfair to say, Tom, that the Shells are a very underachieving club for what they've achieved underage? They still haven't made that breakthrough at adult level at senior football or at senior hurling, and all the, you know, they dominated underage, under minor, under 21 up along this. We still are waiting for the Shells team to make the breakthrough.
We'll have to be very careful because Kate Kelly is sitting beside me here, Rory. So I suppose underage success is no guarantee of senior success, and in fairness to the Shells, they have contested semi-finals and been pretty close. A lot of clubs like the Shells have been victims of Owlert's dominance and Owlert's brilliance over the last while, and you know, I suppose really what clubs are waiting for, the likes of the Shells, the likes of Glenbarntown, the Anns and Ferns have been waiting for this time that Owlert may not be the elephant in the room, and this really is a big opportunity for them now. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see who's going to take this golden opportunity.
Shells have every chance in the semi-final. Like, to be honest, I couldn't say for definite who's going to get out of either semi-final, but you know, on the basis of how many evidence I've seen this year, I do think that Ferns have the potential to win the county championship and to win this county semi-final. That's not saying they will, but you know, there's key positions all over the field. Like, I think if you look at the Ferns forwards, they have the potential, as I've said already, they have the potential to take apart any team. They remind me of Owlert when they were really flying 3 and 4 years ago. You know, they could have a game over by half time really if they get a good supply and if they run at their men. But Shells have key men as well, and you know, if you look at Stephen Banville on Porry Grime, Stephen will have to fancy his chances at playing in full forward, and Stephen's strongest asset is his hand, you know, his physical strength. You'd have to say Clive Lawler, if Clive keeps James Tonks out of the game, that the supply of ball to the Shells forward, or to the Ferns forwards will be, you know, severely curtailed. So, and as well as that too, you have to look at, you know, the really dominant forwards on the two teams, and I've mentioned Joe Kelly already. I mean, his contribution the last day was outstanding, and there was no real Ferns forward that really gave an exhibition like he did. So every team will have their pluses and minuses. There's going to be massive matchups, Tom. Midfield, I'm sure, is going to be one as well.
Well, I think, Rory, I am so impressed by the Ferns midfield. You know, I mean, I think Tommy Dwyer and Benny Jordan have been the outstanding unit, or if you call them a unit, in Wexford hurling over the last 2 to 3 years. You know, they very, very rarely disappoint. Benny covers so much ground. He's, you know, he's up and he's down and he's in and he's out. Tommy, you know, he's putting balls over the bar. He's taking frees when they really need scores, and I thought that really was epitomised the last day when they played Rathnewer. But on the other hand, the Doyles are serious players. I mean, yeah, I had Owen Doyle when he was very, very young, and I have to say he's a superb talent. So it's going to be really made in that area. It's going to be very, very important. For me, I think Ferns will win, but it's a very dicey one, and I don't think Kate will be too impressed with what both of us are saying now at this stage.
Well, lads, I'm going to have to disagree on this one. I think I'm giving Shells the thumbs up. Sunday in the park is the place to be, and let's see who's right and wrong. I'm alone, and so